I'm aware that people make mistakes, people lie, people do, but that doesn't explain what happened, right? And just like a magic trick, just because I can give you a method for something, that doesn't mean that that's what's at play here.
But like, you know, it's also interesting that you have that like exterior lens of being a magician to evaluate a space like this when you talk to the people you do, because like it or not, there's ways, just as you described with the telepathy tapes, I don't think it's a lot different with some of the stories that you cover like on your show, to where you can kind of maybe pick out a sleight of hand moment, or like, wait, no, I would have done that. You know, I would have done that like that. So you have like another layer to look at it to try to get to where that truth is. That's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, and it's important not to judge people based on that. I think, and that's become something that I've had to really look at too. Is like,
can you explain that more?
Yeah, most magicians specifically, like magic is a thing where it's you know, you can start off, you know, being told that, you know, oh, magic is real and God is real and all this, like really, like when you're a child, and then as soon as you learn magic, you become like atheist, you become skeptical, you become like a lot of, like most magicians are extreme, at least at one point, become extremely atheist and skeptical of everything.
Really?
Yeah, because you're given a secret knowledge, right? You're told something that explains everything. Right? Whether it's psychological manipulation, whether it's like all these different illusions, you know, you can explain everything through magic. That doesn't mean that's the reason, but you can explain it. It fits everything. You know, you come to me with, oh, you know, I saw this, I saw that. There's some niche psychological, you know, phenomenon that explains whatever happened to you, or a combination of the atmosphere at a certain time of day with the planet, or there are methods to everything, but that doesn't mean that that's the reason. And so it's been a journey for me as a magician to, you know, start off. I was raised Catholic, you know, taught all these things are real and whatnot.
Oh, you were?
Yeah, but wasn't really practicing, just kind of like innately bought into it. Yeah. And then as I learned magic and I got deeper into magic, I suddenly became aware of all these amazing methods to things. And I just looked at religion differently now. Now I'm like, I remember going to a baptism and being like, why is that guy wearing like gold and like, well, he's got a big hat and he's holding a scepter, and they got the smoke now and they're bathing the child in the chalice. And I'm like, oh, this is all performative, weird, like psychological, you know, reinforcement of their ideals. And I'd start thinking like a magician when I'm looking at this now. I'm just seeing a magician. I'm seeing a guy who goes home, you know, and trolls somebody on the internet and watches his favorite show and eats Cheetos, but then he gets dressed up in this golden robe and has this scepter and says all these words. This is how I'm seeing it now. I'm seeing like a magician, right? And I start seeing all the things. And so as you do that, you start becoming skeptical, nihilist, even kind of cynical.
Yeah, I'll bet.
And most magicians stop there. That's a line. It's a straight line. It's from there to there. And at the age of 20, 22, you figured out life. And that's most magicians, sadly. And
it's kind of dangerous, though, to have even though you have a great skill, to assume you've figured out the most wildest, unfigureoutable questions by age 20. I was a fucking moron at 22. You know what I mean?
And if you want a more practical example, look at people who learn like physics or mathematics, or like really, really smart people. They have a harder time of broadening their worldview because they're held so high in a position of knowledge compared to everyone else, right? If you look at Neil deGrasse Tyson, you know, I think he's done great things to get people interested and curious, but, you know, you're also capping what you know, because you not knowing something says something about how smart you are. Right. It signals to people that, oh, maybe he's not so smart. So he has to know everything.
Right.
And so magicians are kind of the same way, in that they kind of think they know everything always. And so for me, it's been a bit of a journey to realize that it's okay to say I don't know, and I'm willing to listen and try and figure it out. But at the same time, to the original point, if I'm talking to somebody and I clearly see a few tells that there's something else under the surface, or something doesn't match up or doesn't add up. I have to be able to put that aside. And
you have to put that aside.
Yeah, because I don't want to. I'm aware that people make mistakes, people lie, people do, but that doesn't explain what happened, right? And just like a magic trick, just because I can give you a method for something, that doesn't mean that that's what's at play here. And that's the real thing that's really hard for a lot of magicians, a lot of people who know a lot of things to get over. Just because you have an explanation for something, that doesn't mean that's the explanation, right? There could be something you're not thinking of.
What you are talking about right now is actually identifying the most commonly understood problem in society at large these days, which is that people, a subset of people, and they tend to be the loudest people who get the most attention, especially online, have convinced themselves and the world that everything needs to be 0 or 100. Mm-hmm. And what you are talking about is the nuance of things.
Yeah.
Which means not everything's right, not everything is right, not everything's wrong.
There is no right or wrong.
There's no right or wrong.
There is none, yeah. So how do you know what's right or wrong in 100 years from now, whatever decision you made, you know? If you look at like Hermeticism is really interesting, I think, because you go like the 7 laws, the 7 Hermetic principles, and one of them is there are no opposites. There are just varying degrees of the same thing. And that I think is really interesting. Like if you look at like heat and cold, like we see this binary sort of heat and cold thing, but it's just something vibrating faster or slower. It's the same thing. It's just vibrating at different rates, right? So there is no difference. It's just a varying degree of the same thing. And so I think there's a lot. I think we have to treat most things that way. Is like look at things.
Most things.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
I think obviously I think there are maybe things that are objective to us, to our ability to perceive things. But I also think that, there are things that just we have to understand. Like we're smart enough to understand that we don't know everything. Why do we act like we do? It's like we should be able to suspend anything in favor of just data entry.
Yes. I'm with that. Because like, if you take those things to extremes, if I walked outside right now and some guy I've never met before who has no idea who I am walks up to me and blows my brains out, like, obviously, I would say that's wrong, right? On a right-wrong scale. But you don't want to to your point, you don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater here and then start to apply that black or white scenario to fucking everything you listen to, especially when, with the things we're talking about today, you may be dealing with things that are completely unknown to the scientific universe or that have elements that could explain something that's previously been unexplainable, but not all of it can explain it. You know what I mean? You have to leave that room for interpretation open. It sounds like that's what you've gotten pretty good at doing with the content you cover now, because you have to. You have to. Yeah. You ever hear that like Taoist sort of story about the guy that, the farmer whose kid breaks his leg? No.
So like, he's a farmer and he loses his horse, right? And then the neighbor comes, he goes, "Oh, that's bad." And he goes, "There's no good. There's no. And it's like, "Oh, okay." And then enters like a draft and whatever and like wins a horse, right? Enters like a raffle and wins a horse. And the neighbor comes, "Hey, that's good." And he's like, "Oh, it's no good or bad. Really, it's whatever, And then the son, hops up on the horse now that he has a horse, and he falls off and he breaks his leg. And he goes, "Oh, it's bad." And the guy goes, "No, it's not really. Like, I mean, there's no good or bad." And then, the war comes along and now they're doing conscription, but he's got a broken leg, so he can't be conscripted into the war. And so he's, "Oh, that's good." He goes, "I don't really, how do you know what's good or bad?" Right? So it's this idea that like we say labels of good and bad and everything's like, but it's just varying. We don't know. We don't know enough to know if something's good or bad. We don't know what effect that has on anything. So it's really a subjective opinion, on whether something is good or bad. It's based on, so there's no real measuring of anything. It's all about feelings, right? And so it's better to just act as though it's all just data. It's all just interesting. It's all just really interesting stuff. And you can package it any way you want it, as a joke, as a entertaining story, or as like a horrific incident or whatever. And I'll just take it all the same and process it that way and just see what comes out of it, see what kind of connections we can find, or, but if you like, there's so many people, I'm sure you're thinking of these people too, where you go, they're like, oh, what are you working on? And you go, but, and no matter what you say, they go, oh, right. Nah, that's not for me. Right. Like that. I'm sorry. Like that. I do, like, please stop me if I'm ever that person. Like anything at all. I never want to be that person that completely dismisses something
right
upon hearing a soundbite. I'm like, that's a detriment to humanity, to everything, man. Like, we have to learn to just shut up and listen for a second, and just, who cares? Just because you listen to something doesn't mean you have to believe it. Doesn't mean you have to not believe it.
That's right. You can have your own opinion about it. I think to do the job you and I do, and obviously like you're more in one topic, I do a lot of different things, but what we have in common is we got to sit down with people and talk to them for a long time and try to understand where they're coming from. Like, you're going to walk away from some and be like, yeah, I don't really agree with any of that, but you have to hear it out. You have to actually get that data to understand that and be able to make an educated personal decision on it. And this is the other thing that's kind of the problem with our world. It just because you think it, and I'm not saying there's something wrong with opinions, but just because you think it doesn't mean you need to fucking tell everyone about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there's a time to do it and there's a time to not. Your guess sometimes is as good as mine, but we kind of live in this world where people, the instant they think something, right? And that's not healthy to me. Like 99.9% of the tweets I write don't get sent.
Yeah.
There's a very good reason for that. I have a very small Twitter following because of it. But I'm cool with that.
Yeah, it's okay.
Because I see what happens to people when they reinforce, this need to have to give their opinion on things over and over again. They become someone else. I've seen it happen I've been on Twitter since 2010, I think. I've seen it happen forever. And like, there's something about that type of technology that like our consciousness, to bring it back to that, has not fully integrated with yet and understood what that does to our worldview. Like, people talk about it, including some people who are stuck in these loops, and then they don't even realize they're stuck in the loop.
It's crazy.
And I'm like, ooh, I wouldn't want to be there.
Yeah.
But you're always stepping out like, all right, I'm not there on anything, am I? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you got that like paranoia. Like, am I stuck in this loop with this thing because of, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and it usually has to do that specifically with people. It's never events or ideas, right? It's always people. So that's always been my sort of, or at least recently has been my threshold of like what not to engage with. And if it's about a person, I don't engage.
Yeah. It's drama, it's gossip,
whatever it is. It's just not worthy of discussion. I think it's not worth it. But if it's events, I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And now if it's ideas, oh, here we go. Let's talk about that. You know what I mean?
Thank you guys for checking out this clip. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe and hit the like button on this video. It is a huge, huge help. And if you'd like to check out this clip's full podcast episode, that link is in the description below or right here. And finally, you can follow me on Instagram and X by using the links in my description below.